Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 in our What If interview series, where we're discussing and sharing knowledge on customer experience, digital transformation, and how to better serve vulnerable groups. So my name is Tracy Greer. For those who haven't joined us before, I'm the head of marketing for Mando. We're a digital agency committed to simplifying digital experiences for everyone. So we work with regulated industries like utilities and financial services, focusing on helping your customers to do those tasks they really don't want to do. So for instance, we don't all wake up on a Saturday morning really excited about having to pay a water bill or claim on our insurance. So we make these experiences easier, giving customers time back to do the more exciting things that they want to do with their lives. Just to let everyone know, we've got my colleague Sarah on with us too. Sarah's going to be helping with logistics and monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions or comments, just post them in the chat window or the Q&A window, and Sarah will pose the questions for Sally at the end. We're going to be chatting for around 20 minutes and then we'll get onto some questions after that. So today our topic is what if complaints were an opportunity to ensure customer loyalty, with our guest, insurance industry and customer experience expert, Sally Pearce of Conduct Matters. So Sally, good morning. If you can just start off with introducing yourself, just a bit about your background and telling us more about what you do at Conduct Matters.
Hello Tracy, hello everybody, nice to be here. Well, I've worked in insurance for 40 years, which sounds like an awful long time, doesn't it? I must love it, mustn't I? I was an underwriter for 20 years, working frontline, so I get that kind of customer experience side of things. About 20 years ago, I don't know, I jumped into work for the Financial Ombudsman and haven't looked back since then. I moved into dispute resolution very quickly, getting engaged in treating customer fairly, looking at the customer experience, how we learn from complaints, what we do with the complaints information. And I've actually loved it. I mean, everybody tells you when you go and work for the Ombudsman, oh, you might last 2 or 3 years. It's a bit grueling, but it's not. Yeah. If you embrace it and you love it, it's that feeling you can make a difference, and every day is different. About 6 years ago, I did get a bit bored, I suppose, and I decided I would branch out on my own and set up my own business. I started off with consultancy services, helping insurance firms create frameworks that supported their fair treatment of customers, how they design their products, how they have a good complaints process, all those kind of things, how they create their services. And I've loved every minute of it. A couple of years ago, I realised that I really loved the training side of things, talking to people. It's that kind of teaching people to fish element. I think it's all very well going in and creating things for people, but yeah, it's much better if I can leave, I suppose, a legacy. It sounds a bit arrogant, but if I can leave people with the skills and knowledge to create and manage their own frameworks, that's much more satisfying for me. So I started working on some e-learning, and now I sell e-learning as well as consultancy services. It's kind of timed quite well with the financial services market, where there's lots of more emphasis in recent years on CPD and training and quality training. So the fact that I'm creating something based on my work with the regulators, my work with firms, and my own frontline experience has been, I think, really helpful, and I love every minute of it.
Well, you can't complain at that, can you? To love every minute of what you do. That's the ideal, isn't it? So very much your experience is based around customer experience, regulation, and just really helping companies to get the most out of their customer teams. That's perfect. Right, yeah. Great, thank you. So moving on to our topic for the day. Or for the session today. So we know that around 1 in 25 customers complain, but the others, they don't say anything. We've all seen customer complaints that have gone viral on social media, complete nightmare for those companies. And obviously for the customers that don't complain, they probably just stop doing business with those companies completely. And then, word of mouth gets around, and before you know it, you've got a situation on your hands. So in your experience and what you've seen over the last few years, what have been some of the issues in this space?
Okay, well, you're absolutely right, Tracy, that in the complaints world, we see a complaint as a gift, and that's how all firms should see them. It's your opportunity to learn what went wrong for the customer and make it better. So I see it as a very positive place to work. So the issues in the space. So for me in recent years, I guess the three biggest issues that have affected the work that we're doing in that space, I think the increase in vulnerability is one. So just simplistically, just looking at two areas, we have an aging population, and an aging population that doesn't like change. You know, as you get older, you don't like things that are different. It's difficult to learn things. So I would say I'm happy to be pushed back on this one, because it's just based on the statistics, though. Generally, the older the person, the harder it is for them to use technology. Now, I know there are exceptions, but I just want to say, as a generalism and based on the statistics, that's what we're seeing. So an aging population means that we create more technology, we create more new processes, people struggle with them, and that's going to create more complaints. Alongside that, we've got a regulatory oversight that is changing all the time. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing is in some places it's changing because firms haven't met the principles. So if you have a principle and you don't set a rule, effectively the regulator is trusting the regulated firm to follow that principle. And sadly, a few exceptions have found little ways around doing that. So what the regulator has to do is they have to be more prescriptive. The more prescriptive the regulator is, the harder it is to create a customer-friendly process. So by way of example, I've just got my direct debit on my my electricity and gas doubled without notice, without anything, and they're telling me it's because the regulator says they have to review and change it every 6 months without any process. So that's not helpful to me, but I can see the regulators push them to do that. So that creates more complaints, it creates more trouble for people. I think the third issue is just that generally we're living in a society where we're just getting better at complaining. We just don't take rubbish anymore. You know, if someone's unhappy, they will complain more. So, and in a way that's good. As I've said, it's better to be told and not told, but it does mean people can get quite, I think the irony is that when people make a complaint, they'll research the complaint more than they researched when they originally took out the product. Which is somewhat disappointing, but that's life. So that's where we are. It's a growing market, and then they are the big issues for me at the moment.
Okay. What do you think businesses have actually been doing wrongly up until now?
I think the big thing they've been doing wrongly is communication. I think what they have tended to do is they've come up with these wonderful, great ideas that work for the business but don't work for the customers. So, as I say, getting back to this situation with an aging population. So we've got an adult population of around about 50 million, and around about 10% of that population don't use the internet. We have, I think, just over 20 million households in the UK, and about just shy of 2 million of those households don't have internet access. So, you know, you've got insurance firms getting very excited about what they put on their website. The regulator does it as well. The regulator says you have to tell your customers this, and it's fine just to do it on the website. I've seen that quite a lot. So, you know, the website information, communications just electronically is just not helpful for those customers. There's no flexing in the process. There's no, you know, it's that kind of, it's the 80-20 rule. I guess, you know, we can make most of our money this way, so let's not worry about the rest. That's the biggest issue for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a situation recently where we didn't realise the car insurance had been renewed with the same company because they didn't even email it to us. They just put it in the online account and expected you to sign in and know that the renewal was there. So yeah, with people's busy lives, they need more forms of communication, more kind of instant communication and ways to actually know things.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with these online accounts myself for the same reason. You don't go into them until you need to renew the policy. You only go in there when they send you the policy wording, and then you forget the password. You forget you've even got it, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think there are a lot of ways. We'll come on to technology in a bit, but I think there are a lot of ways where technology can be so much more proactive and used in much better ways, in more human ways, to actually replicate those human experiences rather than just being an online portal. I mean, that's not always helpful, is it, for every customer? So
No, I agree.
yeah, absolutely. And you've said a lot in on your blogs, and I'm sure it's in your training and things, about saying sorry to customers when things go wrong. Why do you think that makes a difference? And if you can just go into that a bit for us and explain your thoughts behind that.
Yeah, I think saying sorry is absolutely vital. And I think we saw what can go wrong when people go wrong with their saying sorry with Priti Patel, when she said a sorry that we all knew wasn't a sorry. She said, "I'm sorry that you feel," or words to that extent. We know
Sorry,
that
sorry,
doesn't
not
work.
sorry.
Exactly. So I think it's important to think about what we mean by sorry. So a sorry that you feel, a sorry that you're upset, that's not particularly helpful. It's interesting, actually. I'm a big fan of American cop shows. So if you watch those, you'll notice the phrase that they use a lot is, "I'm sorry for your loss." And it's a great phrase, because actually it's not accepting blame. It's just expressing some sympathy. It's just softening. And that's a really good phrase for that. You don't feel that anger at it, do you? So I think it's really important to firstly think about what we mean by sorry. I think a sorry at the beginning of the conversation is never good, because a sorry at the beginning of the conversation doesn't mean sorry, it means go away, it means shut up, because you haven't listened to them, you don't know what's going on. So it's not a real sorry, in my view. So, and I think the other reason that sorry is an important word to think about before we talk about the benefits is that some people are scared of saying sorry. They think it means, if I say sorry, I'm legally liable. I think you hear stories about motor insurers saying, don't say sorry if there's an accident, because then we're committed to pay the other person's claim. It's still possible to say sorry without accepting legal liability. There's plenty of research out there. They've done some research in the States and in the UK, the Medical Defence Union, on medical negligence claims, where they found that if the doctor talks to the family and says, "I'm really sorry this has happened, let me talk you through and explain what's happened," and is very open about what's happened, they are less likely to go to litigation. Because what people want is someone to listen to them, tell them what's happened, and have a proper human conversation with them. So, and I think that's really important. Don't be scared of saying sorry. The regulator isn't going to say, just because you said sorry, therefore you've got to pay compensation. It's not about saying sorry in that way. So for me, a sorry is about having a conversation with someone. It forms a natural part of a conversation. You listen to someone. So you've got to give the customer, the complainant, time to tell you what's upset them, what's bugging them. And then at some point, it will become natural to say something like, "I'm really sorry that happened." Now, "I'm really sorry that happened" sounds nice, it sounds natural. There's no accepting of, no one's going to write that down and take you to court on it. It's just, "I'm sorry that's happened." I is an important part of it. I would always say, talking face to face, I would always say I. In fact, I'd always say it in a letter. I just feel it's a personal exchange. You've not gone away and looked at paperwork and looked at evidence and decided who's right or wrong. You're just expressing some sympathy for someone. And that has a kind of magical effect psychologically on the relationship between you and the complainant. It takes it from a very confrontational place into a place where you're saying to them, "I'm with you on this, I want to help. I'm sorry this has happened." And the natural next question to ask is, "So I want to know more so that I can firstly help you get to a resolution, but also I want to know more because this isn't what we want for our customers. So I want to make sure other customers don't experience this. So I'd like your help." That exchange is really powerful, because you're pulling that customer into working together to find a solution. And I think they feel listened. That's the thing. It's a human need to be listened, to be understood, to be appreciated. You see it in all walks of life, and it's really important. So sorry is hugely, hugely powerful, but it has to be the right sorry.
Definitely. I mean, I don't think there's many of us that complain because we want something out of the company. We want compensation. We actually complain because we want the system to be changed and the processes to be changed so it doesn't affect anybody else in the way it's affected us. So yeah, I think that just the way it's handled and the way that it forms that partnership with the customer to solve the issue. I think that's really important, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think, you know, people want solutions, obviously, but I agree. I think in my experience, a significant proportion of customers want that exchange, especially the ones that feel so strongly they've pushed it to a face-to-face discussion. If they've kind of pushed it into a formal complaint, that's what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just thinking about the last few months, what have been some of the good and bad aspects that you've seen from companies over the last few months, where obviously everything's been exacerbated? You know, there's potentially been more complaints, but there's just been a lot more people trying to get through to call centres, which in turn has probably sparked a raft of complaints themselves. You know, the FCA themselves have said that COVID is likely to exacerbate a lot of issues for vulnerable customers. We know this already, you know, particularly with people facing temporary vulnerabilities and how that's affecting them in interacting with their service provider. So yeah, if you can just outline some of the some examples of really great ways you've seen complaints handled and really bad ways, the kind of do's and don'ts almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're absolutely right. I think we all accept that things are difficult all around, and that there's going to be a lot more complaints going on. And I think consumers will be very forgiving if they can get to someone who can help them. So I thought it might be quite interesting to share a story of two situations in one flight. So my friend and I were due to fly to Canada in June. We had flights booked at a cost of £1,300 each. She has one travel insurer, I have a different travel insurer. We both have very, very different experiences, and I think we can learn from this. Ironically, they're two great stories, but not a great experience for one of us. So about 6 weeks before we were due to fly, and the travel agent was saying to us, okay, well, we don't know what's happening. It's a sit and wait scenario. We were flying with Air Canada.
Yeah.
And basically they're saying they're not doing any refunds unless the government make them. They're one of the airlines who are being less than helpful.
Yeah.
They were offering credit if we wanted to fly another time, but we didn't want to fly another time. So anyway, so my friend tried to phone her insurer. Both insurers shall remain nameless. So my friend tried to phone her insurer about 6 weeks before the flight. Couldn't get through. She couldn't get through on the phone. She couldn't. So she tried all the numbers. She searched on the internet. Couldn't find any way. In the end, she found an email address. So she emailed them, and that just went in a black hole. She got absolutely nothing. I decided to phone my insurer, and I got a recorded message when I was on hold saying to me, "We're really busy. If you've got more than 2 weeks before your flight, can you end the call and ring us when it's less than 2 weeks before the flight, and then we will be able to help you and we'll be able to speak to you." So, okay, I'm going to put the phone down and do what they've told me to do.
Yeah.
She didn't get anything like that. She kept emailing, no responses. In the end, because she hadn't heard anything back from them, she made a formal claim. So she put in a claim for her cancellation of her flight. We still had flights booked, but we were told we couldn't have a refund. Anyway, so this was the situation. She was pushing them. She then got answers saying, well, it hasn't been cancelled and we don't know yet. And then she escalated it, and then it went into a complaints team, and she got someone phone her, and she wasn't getting the answer she was on. So pretty much every couple of days she was giving me an update that she got another contact, or she pushed again, and just wasn't getting anywhere, because they started saying to her, well, you can't make a claim until the flight's cancelled. And she said, but I can't fly, and they won't give me a refund. I need to know if I'm covered. So anyway, it gets to less than 2 weeks. I phone my insurer and say, okay, what's the situation now? And they basically said, right, here's the situation. Do your best, but we will treat this as a valid claim. But we need you to firstly go through the cancellation process with the airline and then go through your credit card Section 75 claim. But at the end of that, whatever you're short of, you're going to get from us.
Yeah.
And if you're a no-show, if you cancel, it's fine. If you cancel because you can't get on the flight, it's fine. Because at that point, Canada was saying we wouldn't let you off the flight because no one could go in from the UK. And that's fine. They also said if you're a no-show on the flight, it'll be covered as well, which was quite reassuring. And my friend was still getting the runaround from her insurer, people not ringing back if she contacted them, you know, in this black hole. By now, it's in the complaint process. It's been escalated. It's gone to the formal complaint process. 2 days before the flight, we were told by the travel agent that Air Canada wouldn't cancel the flight, but also wouldn't let us on the flight with British passports because we wouldn't be allowed off the other end. So we cancelled the flight at that point because it was our best chance of getting some kind of refund. So the situation we're now in is she's got a complaint and a claim on the go, and I'm sitting still because I'm waiting to find out whether to make a claim. So my experience was far better, a lot easier. I felt very stress-free. I had very stressy, regular messages from my friends with updates every day. What shall I do? What shall I do? And also, from a cost point of view, how difficult, I mean, look at the insurer. So her insurer, I think, will have paid out more than £1,300 of the claim in the cost of dealing with her. My insurer had a 10-minute call with me.
Yeah.
So that for me are the two ends of good and bad. And I think there are some real important lessons to learn from there in the way it's back to that communication again. What are you telling your customers? If there's a black hole, they're going to keep pushing and they're going to go. I think we did go onto Twitter at one point.
Yeah, right.
Because you
not the best, most advised channel to be handling complaints through, is it?
Not really what you want, and it doesn't really help, and it just gets everyone upset. So kind of two. So I think and I suspect there are people all around the country with similar experiences to the two of us.
Yeah.
And I know which one of us will be renewing with our insurer.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And I mean, that's such, those personal stories are such a great illustration of just how to get it right and how to get it wrong. And also, like you say, the cost of dealing with that claim for your friend's insurer. I mean, that's crazy. You multiply that by then the number of their customers making claims, and you know, already there's, you know, massive opportunity for cost savings by implementing systems that handle things much better, or processes like your insurance company that handle things much better and much more smoothly with far less contact touch points for the customer.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that email is a very, very expensive channel for companies to actually to serve customers through. So, you know, if there's multiple emails coming through from the same customer, it's just crazy, isn't it? So, I mean, it leads us really, really nicely on to the solutions. You know, what are the key ingredients for you for turning customer complaints into loyalty?
Okay, well, I think, as I said to you, I think, you know, that contact and having that contact is really important. But I think the key, and coming on from those two examples, I think it helps. I think the key is finding the customers who need to talk to you, making it easy for them to talk to you. I'm doing this in my hands because I'm going to talk about my triangle. So triaging. I'm kind of seeing, if you I know it's not quite a triangle, is it? So if you imagine there's a triangle, and at the bottom you've got all the customers who need contact with you, and at the top you've got the contact with the service team. So what I think we need to do is you need to get your customers at the bottom getting through to that service team, but the numbers. So I talked earlier, didn't I, about 79% of people have smartphones. So just as a broad brush, if we say that 79% of customers can be well serviced by an efficient technology solution, then that leaves you 21% who need to talk to someone. It might be a bit different because complaints are a bit different. It's not always about having it. Sometimes the situation is such you need to talk to someone. So then if you can take that 80% out and give them a good technology solution and give them a good way of communications, and good technology doesn't necessarily mean exciting stuff. It can
No.
just be good comms on the website, you know. I mean, for example, a few years ago, everyone got very excited about telephone systems that dial 1 for this and press that for that. But
Yeah.
customers hate them. I
Yeah.
mean, they absolutely, no one wants to use them.
But
So,
now they've moved on so much as well. So that's just
exactly,
old hat now, isn't it? I
it
mean,
is, isn't it?
you've got phone systems where you've got sentiment analysis, and you know, if a customer's sounding irate at the start of that, then it'll triage them through to speak to somebody a lot quicker. You know, you've got such sophisticated systems now around sentiment analysis. You know, the words that people are saying, the fact that you can join up you can join all the channels into one single customer view, so that if somebody's phoning up, you know, the company already knows that they've phoned up multiple times before, or they've had a website inquiry about the same thing, or they've, you know, that they've been, you know, like your friend, they've been on Twitter, and you know, there's ways of joining that up through a really great digital experience platform to be able to have this single view, and you can triage them instantly then.
Well, exactly, and I think that that's the great thing. And then the people dealing who need that face-to-face can then easily get to the customer service, and then when they get to them, getting to people who are good, getting to people who really understand how to talk to customers, and knowing that the 20% or whatever percent that are coming through the process are the ones who need that hand-holding and support.
Yeah, and that human connection, that, you know,
Absolutely.
the empathy that goes with it.
Yeah.
And like you said before, the saying sorry, person to person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously that's what you do a lot of with your training, isn't it? Is actually, you know, training companies, customer service teams on how to deal with people properly. You would assume that most know that, but
Yeah.
when it comes to complaints, I would imagine, you know, there's a lot of intricacies for those customer service people.
Yeah, people are scared of, you know, they're scared about what to say, because they're, you know, all these things are recorded. They can go to the ombudsman, they can get escalated, and people are really scared. So yeah, I really like to work with people on how they can just really get that engagement with the customers, the right, even just language. You know, there's certain language that kind of will press buttons for people, and the fight and flight response, understanding how people react when they're in a dispute. Yeah, I love it.
You can really tell. And I'm just going to bring Sarah back on. I think we've got a couple of questions for our last few minutes there. Sarah, do you want to pose those questions for Sally?
Yeah, of course. So thank you guys. I think the content's been great. We just had a few questions. So Sally, are there any lessons to be learned from how companies have handled complaints during lockdown?
Okay, so I think obviously the big lesson there in communication. I think the big lesson is in having teams that work together to find those solutions. So I think, you know, we're seeing how operational resilience is absolutely key, and the people who can best be involved in your operational resilience plans and working out what to do are your staff. So I think it has to be a lot more of a kind of a team process to work out how you're going to service your customers and what can go wrong and how it can go wrong. So I would say really operational resilience is key. Those who've been able to step up quickly, those who've been able to get the technology, or, you know, deliver laptops to staff, get phone lines in and things, and that's been planning. So that is the planning. So it's that operational resilience planning is absolutely key. They're the ones who've absolutely got it right. And I think talking to your customers, listening to your customers is always crucial. Those ones, as I say, my experience with my travel insurer was a really simple one, really simple. But they clearly knew what their customers were going to be ringing them to ask them. They clearly understood what we needed. So understanding your customers' needs is, you know, don't be scared to do a focus group. Don't be scared to do customer satisfaction survey.
And listening to them on all channels, you know, being available. That's the most important thing, giving people options. And just one last one, with the financial crisis potentially looming, obviously because of COVID, complaints could increase significantly, and call centres might be swamped. Do you know of any companies that are proactively preparing for this?
Yeah, I think quite a few are proactively preparing for it. I've had quite a few clients talking to me about the need to have support for, you know, if there's a sudden increase in complaints. So I've got a friend who I used to work with at the Ombudsman who's working with me to provide that support to smaller companies. So that's really good. I think the bigger companies, because the smaller companies aren't going to be in a position to go and employ people. It's not those numbers really. The bigger companies, yeah, I'm hearing stories that the bigger companies are looking to recruit more staff. The danger there, of course, is that they don't have the time to do the training. So it's making sure those staff have the right training. And it's not just about processes and regulators. As we said, it's about how to talk to people, how to listen to people, how to engage with people. And it might take a little bit more time, but it's much more productive for the process. The process becomes more efficient, and you get to keep the customers. You want to keep the customers. It's what is it, 20 times more expensive, I think they say, to get a new customer than it is to keep an existing customer. So keep that existing customer. So yeah, I'm seeing a mixture of approaches, but everyone I talk to knows they need to step up their resources here.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is to remember that the things you've talked about may be in insurance, but they are cross-sector. There are things that are happening, you know, across all sectors, and things that we can learn from and, you know, grow together. You know, this thing that we're all in this together. We are, you know, we want to grow together. So yeah, thank you so much, Sally. That's great.
Okay, thanks.
Right, that's great. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you especially to Sally. That's been absolutely brilliant last half hour. Some really, really great points there. Hopefully everybody's got a couple of key things to take away and to be able to implement. So yeah, thank you so much to Sally, our lovely guest today, and have a good rest of your day. We will send the recording around shortly, so you can watch again or share it with colleagues. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.